Our story begins just north of Munich, in a small, remote hamlet known as Hinterkaifeck, a place so small, it barely exists on maps anymore. Here lived the Gruber family. There was Andreas Gruber, the patriarch, a stern man in his 60s, known for his eccentricities. His wife, Cecilia Gruber, also in her 60s. Their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, in her mid-30s. And her 2 young children, Cecilia, aged 7, and little Joseph, a toddler just 2 years old. They also had a brand new maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had only arrived at the farm hours before everything went wrong. Now, before the unspeakable happened, the Grubers had experienced a string of deeply unsettling incidents. These weren't random coincidences. These were red flags the size of barn doors. Just days before the murders, Andreas Gruber, the old man, found footprints in the fresh snow around his farm. Footprints leading directly from the nearby woods to the farmhouse, but none leading away. It was as if someone had emerged from thin air, walked to their door, and then vanished. He told his neighbors, but they shrugged it off. Andreas also complained of hearing footsteps in the attic, loud, clear footsteps directly above his head for several nights. He even went up to investigate, armed with his rifle, but found nothing. He believed someone was living in their attic, and given what we know now, he was probably right. Then came the missing house key, the one they kept hidden outside under a loose stone. It vanished. They never found it. And perhaps the strangest of all, a newspaper not bought by anyone in the family appeared on the property. What was it doing there? Who left it? And finally, just months before, their previous maid had suddenly quit. She claimed the house was haunted, that she couldn't sleep, and that she constantly heard voices and noises. She fled in terror, refusing to stay another night. Think about that. Footprints to nowhere, sounds in the attic, a missing key, a random newspaper, and a maid fleeing screaming about ghosts. These weren't isolated incidents. This was a slow, terrifying buildup, a dread that must have hung heavy in the air but went unheeded. The exact sequence of events on the night of March 31st, 1922, remains a terrifying mystery, but we can piece together some of the horror. It's believed that Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, and the 7-year-old Cecilia were lured one by one into the barn, perhaps under the pretense of an emergency or simply ambushed. They were then brutally murdered with a mattock, a farmer's tool like a pickaxe with a broad end. Each struck down with incredible force, their skulls crushed. The horror of that barn, unimaginable. Little Joseph, the 2-year-old, was likely murdered in his bassinet, in his bed while he slept. The new maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had only just arrived that day, was killed in her bed as well. 6 people, an entire family, systematically slaughtered. But here's where the story takes a truly sickening turn. This wasn't a quick smash and grab. This wasn't a desperate robber. The killer, or killers, didn't just commit their heinous acts and flee. They stayed. For at least 2 days. Witnesses later confirmed. Smoke was seen coming from the chimney on Saturday, April 1st, and Sunday, April 2nd. Someone was keeping the fires going. Food had been eaten from the pantry. Someone had fed the cattle in the barn. The family dog, a loyal guard dog, was still alive and unharmed, implying it knew or was familiar with the killer. Think about that. A monster, living in a house of horrors, walking past the bodies, eating their food, tending their animals, for 2 whole days. The sheer audacity, the cold-blooded calculation, it's beyond comprehension. Was it a game? Was it an act of twisted survival? We don't know. It wasn't until Tuesday, April 4th, that neighbors finally grew concerned. The Gruber children hadn't shown up for school for days, which was highly unusual. A few men walked over to Hinterkaifeck. They called out, but received no answer. They saw the farm animals still wandering, looking well-fed. One of the men, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, noticed the barn door was open. He peered inside and saw the first nightmare. The bodies of Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and little Cecilia, stacked unnaturally in the barn. The police were called, and what they found was a scene of unspeakable horror. The bodies inside the house, the methodical nature of the killings, the chilling realization that someone had been living there. The investigation began. The police were called, and what they found was a scene of unspeakable horror. The bodies inside the house, the methodical nature of the killings, the chilling realization that someone had been living there. The investigation began. The police launched an extensive investigation. Hundreds of people were interviewed. Leads were followed, then quickly dried up. But the killer or killers left almost no trace. No fingerprints, no definitive murder weapon found, no clear motive. They identified the weapon as a mattock, a farmer's pickaxe. But whose? Was it from the farm itself? Over the decades, numerous theories have emerged. Robbery gone wrong? Unlikely. Nothing of value was taken from the house. Revenge? Andreas Gruber had a reputation for being difficult, and was even rumored to have been in an incestuous relationship with his daughter Victoria, and possibly the father of young Joseph. Could this have driven someone to such a brutal act of vengeance? The former farmhand? Carl Gabriel, Victoria's husband, was thought to have died in World War I, but some theories suggest he might have survived and returned, exacting revenge on his estranged family. However, his death was officially confirmed. Wandering drifters? The area was remote, but could a transient or a group of criminals have stumbled upon the farm? But why stay for days? A local psychopath? Perhaps a deranged individual from a nearby village? Someone who knew the family and the isolated farm intimately? Someone who could have vanished back into the rural landscape? But here's the kicker. Despite interviewing over 100 suspects throughout the years, despite offering rewards, despite modern cold case reviews, they've never found the killer. Not a single person was ever charged. Not one. The farm itself, after the murders, was eventually demolished. No one wanted to live there. The very ground seemed cursed. But the terror of Hinterkaifeck didn't end with the demolition. Locals reported strange occurrences around the site for years. Whispers in the wind, shadowy figures, the faint sound of footsteps when no one was around. The idea that the spirit of the killer, or perhaps the tormented spirits of the victims, still linger. Was it a ghost that was heard in the attic before the murders? Or was it the monster preparing his heinous act, living above his unsuspecting victims? The thought that someone could plot such a brutal crime, then have the audacity to reside in the house with the bodies, is far more terrifying than any phantom. It speaks to a level of cold, calculating evil that makes your blood run cold. The Hinterkaifeck murders stand as one of Germany's most infamous unsolved mysteries. A stark reminder that sometimes real life is far more terrifying than fiction. We have the victims, the horrific method, the chilling aftermath of the killer's presence. But the motive, the identity of the perpetrator, it remains cloaked in the shadows of that isolated farm.